some business now very quickly. Nigeria is Africa's largest economy and has over 200 million people, with about 50% of the population below the age of 19. Instrument to harnessing the country's human capital potential is the capacity to provide quality and affordable education. Now, the bulk of the demand for sustained investment lies in the primary and secondary education segments. With a demand for affordable quality education far exceeding supply, there is a massive void for investors to fill. However, investing in Nigeria's educational sector requires a suitable business model with a long-term view, a capital for scale, and government support. The divisional head of business growth and transaction banking at Sterling Bank, Mr. Obina Okachukwu, is live in the studio to discuss this. Thank you so much. It's good to start the week with you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, well, billions, of course, spent on foreign education. I'd like to start with how do we turn this around?
You can't turn it around.
Honestly, when you see the figures, sometimes it gets so scary.
Yeah, but you know, like I'd always say, it's beyond education. Those billions spent, people are spending a premium to go get what they think is a quality life outside the country. So if the Hope Index in Nigeria sort of increases, first, that particular amount is going to crash because not everybody going there is actually going to get a certificate. They're going to use a certificate as a route to get probably a second citizenship. But it actually creates that link. It says, if going to school will make me have quality life, then I'll pay anything I need to pay to get quality life. So if there's quality life in Nigeria after going to school in Nigeria, then those monies will definitely come back. It's as simple as that.
But I will ask you, if an investor wants to come to Nigeria today and wants to put money in education, now what needs to be in place?
The first question is, why will an investor put money in education? Because when we think about it, when you were growing up, you learned to walk because you wanted to move from one place to the other, or you learned to talk because you wanted to communicate. Now, when you go to school to learn, why do you learn? It's because you want to be able to do something. Now, if an investor puts money in education and people learn something that does not enable them do something, then that money goes away. So it has to be, education must be linked to, what you call it? Is it productivity? Must be linked to developing something. Because if you can't build something after you've studied, then you can't produce monies to pay back the investments that went into the education. So when we talk about education, we must look at the two sides of it. You're building people, and can the people produce result or offer services that generates capital commensurate to what they use in training them. So that's what you must look at as an investor, both sides.
Private sector, government, and of course we have the people with the big bucks. We know the big boys in the country. Do we really need foreign investments if we have all of this already?
I actually don't think so. Well, if you say foreign investment, do you need foreign investment in cash? I really don't think so. I think the challenge with investing in education in Nigeria, it's just that dislocation. That dislocation between getting a degree and getting a life. That dislocation, it's really dislocated. And until we begin to fix that dislocation, then investment in that space will be meaningless. But if we start fixing the dislocation, we have the capital. I'll give an example, pure play example. Today you need about, I think when I was doing my rough calculation, you need about 200 and maybe 240,000 extra doctors in Nigeria.
240,000?
Yeah, about that. Now we produce maybe about 3,000 and we lose about 3,000 a year. So net we're losing. Now if we stop the bleeding, we still need to produce about 240,000 medical students. Now to get 240,000 graduates, it's 6 years, it's 240,000 times 6. Just watch. That's a lot. Do you know the kind of investment you need to put in infrastructure to house those set of people in order to train them and get them out? But money can go there. Why will money go there? Because you know that for every doctor you produce, he's going to get a job that would be able to pay back whatever money went into the space. And even if Nigeria is not consuming the doctor, somebody else will consume the doctor. Yeah. So I'll be very happy to commit capital into that space. Why? Because it's complete. I can see the outlet. I can see that when this person graduates, he's going to get a job. Yeah. It's like software engineering. We do software engineering. We started the first student loan scheme in Sterling in this country.
Yeah, because I was going there. What have you done? What have you really done to derive value from investing?
Okay, so just taking it back from where I stopped. Yeah. We started by experimenting with a student loan scheme, and we said, hey, we've got to invest in a space where the people can be productive when they graduate. So we said, let's take on this short, like diploma-type software engineering course for 9 months. It cost us, I think, about 3 million or 3.5 million per head. But everybody that has gone through gets a job, and they can now pay back their loans that we've given out, we've disbursed. Today, I was just talking to you about what's it called, medical education. We have told ourselves that for every field that people can be either independently productive, that's productive for the country, or they can get an employment, then we are ready to put capital behind whether it's infrastructure development or whether it's the student loans. As of today, we've committed 50 billion, as in we are committing 50 billion on the table. Well, it's breaking news for you. This is the first time. This is the first time we're actually saying that in public.
That's a lot.
That we're committing 50 billion to back education infrastructure development, but we would only put that money behind courses and professions where that dislocation does not exist. Professions where people can study and they're productive in the community, they're productive in the state, or professions where the state already has an infrastructure to hire them. I'll backtrack a little bit, please.
Okay, go ahead.
You know, I was talking to a friend in government, and I said, most times we think about our students, our universities are not producing the right kind of students, or our students are not skilled enough. I said, it's probably because the universities and the students don't have anything they're trying to solve for. Today, we don't have pipe-borne water. We don't have waste management is a problem. Managing solid waste, erosion control, and the rest. Do you know that if you decide to make an investment as government into these spaces to solve basic utilities, what would you do? You go back to the schools and say, hey, I need professionals that would do this particular thing. Yeah, and I will put money behind it. You will train a lot of people, they'll get jobs, and the citizens would actually be paying in form of utility bills and whatever it is, and it sustains the system, it keeps growing. So the problem we have is that we keep thinking of solving very grandiose issues, very grandiose problems. Which construction company is going to do this? Instead of linking it back to say, we need to build the proficiencies that will solve our problems as Nigerians, for Nigerians. We don't need foreign investment.
This is really getting so interesting. So what would you make of the Student Loan Act from the government at this time?
You know, they always put me on the spot there. I would always start by saying I commend the government for thinking about it. Because first, we don't have enough money. You've seen the government and ASU every time they're headlong. There's not enough money to fund that system. And whatever subsidies the government is actually giving to ASU, the tertiary education sector, is actually wasted because we're supposed to plow that money back into K-12. That's the primary and the secondary school. They're the ones, if you're going to subsidize education, just plow the money back there. Whilst this one has to be a sustainable, it has to be a sustainable system. And that's why the government now says, hey, I'm going to fund students, I'm going to give them loans to go to school, and later they pay. The challenge is it cannot be for every profession. It's not possible. It's not possible because you want to put monies behind professions where when people come out, they can produce value enough in order to pay back. That's the major challenge I've seen with the Act, because the Act just opens it up as if, hey, everyone get an admission. You're qualified if you're from an underserved background or you're from a poor background. You're qualified. But the challenge is if you channel those monies to every Tom, Dick, and whatever course it costs, then You have bad loans everywhere.
Of course.
You have bad loans.
Yeah.
What do I need the study of Egypt history? I'm just giving Egyptian history in this. So the government must say, hey, these are the professions that are important to me. These are the professions where these are the skills I need as a government to grow. And university, if you're bringing people out there, I'm going to put money behind it. They will build them rightly, I'll give them loans, they'll graduate, and they'll begin to solve these problems because they'll create value for the country and the society. It cannot just be an all-comers affair.
But what about public schools? Some are scared that they might be in danger looking at this. Maybe the private schools might be able to scale through. Do we have any of that? Are you worried about this?
I'm not really worried. The only challenge I have with the public schools is we have not, the practitioners in the public schools have not come to terms with the fact that education, tertiary education, has to be a sustainable business. They've not come to
sustainable.
I was talking to the first vice chancellor of the first private university, the pioneer vice chancellor of the first private university in Nigeria, and he told me something. He said, "Hey, when we started, we hired from the public space." Yeah. But yes, he said, and we put performance measures in place. He said, you see a professor that hasn't graduated a PhD student in the past 5 years. When he came on here, he graduated 20 in 5 years. So you see, it's productivity. Yeah. And he had to do this because he knew that the school was not getting any subvention from anyone. It had to be sustainable. So the public schools have to think sustainability end to end. Nobody subsidizes tertiary education. We should subsidize primary and secondary, but tertiary, you've got to think about it like a sustainable business.
The 10% education tax is something that also comes to my mind, and ASU floated this sometime there. But do you think this will be enough to sustain public schools?
No. I don't think you should. I don't think you should tax people to sustain tertiary learning. You can tax people to ensure that our public primary schools are up to standard. You look at videos and pictures, you see children learning under trees. There are no teachers, no chairs, nothing. If you tell me, hey, Obi, you've got to pay 15% tax of your monies and these monies are going to be channeled to our schools, whether rural, whatever it is, primary and secondary, I'll say, hey, yeah, we are up for it. But to tax me for university, for what? Why? The university system has to build a sustainable business model for themselves. And ASU, they are professors, but hey, they've got to go think and say, I've been professoring for 20 years. What have I produced for Nigeria? You have professors in environmental sciences. I'm still struggling to deal with my waste management. You have professors in engineering, and we've not been able to construct one thing. Listen, how I wish I was negotiating on behalf of the federal government when they were doing all these salary adjustments. And I've just told them, what are you bringing to the table? What you're bringing to the table is not producing students that you produced using handouts, copied. See, Nigeria is ranks as one of the top in publishing articles and journals, as in academic articles and journals, that cannot do anything. We just publish the papers, people become professors, but there is no action, there's no life to it. That's where I'll focus on. See, as you come in, the brain they used to go think about 10% education tax for tertiary education system. They used to go and think about how the education system, tertiary schools, are going to impact society and cause us to become a developed country. That's what they should go do.
Broadband penetration, well, maybe the last I saw 48% in Nigeria. So my question really will be, what kind of infrastructure investments do we need for the education sector to thrive? We need internet penetration.
Of course, we need internet penetration. And we're actually working with a couple of partners to start trying to deliver internet relatively free of charge in certain locations, because we know that access to internet aids both formal and informal learning. Now, think about this. I gave this analogy somewhere. I said, the population of Nigerians between 17 years and 23 years is not of 30 million. But you have the capacity of your universities to accommodate students is just about 3 million. So you can accommodate maybe 10% of the population band that are meant to be in the university. So how do you expect to deliver education to the wider set of people? If you want to start a university today, hey, you've got to have X, Y, Z hectares of land, you've got to build up this, you've got to build up this. Hey, even if we pump all the monies we have, foreign investment comes in, we cannot build that capacity to house everyone that needs to be educated in one form or the other in the next 30, 40 years. That's why internet, the investment in internet, has to happen. And it needs to happen in hubs. It needs to happen, you go to the villages. You need to have internet in markets, in schools, somehow. You've just got to make that happen. If we must speed up the ability for people to learn. Put internet, give a child access to internet, give him a tab. Even if you're not teaching him formally, he begins to learn a lot of things.
Something.
So that's I think it's a priority area when you think of education service delivery. It should be priority for every developing country.
Well, let's not talk about school curriculums, because many will tell you that what I learned in school, I'm not practicing anything that looks like it. But are we really keeping up with times?
No, we are not. And the reason we're not keeping up with times is that, you know, they say measure what matters. If you don't have a goal, if you don't have a direction, then every destination is a direction. Now, the reason we're not keeping up with time is that our education is not focused on problem solving. It's not focused on productivity. You look at Nigeria today and say, hey, we've got to produce X, Y, Z. We've got to become food sufficient. And if that is a target, then you come to Ekiti State and say, what's the land like? What can you produce? You can produce yam, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. Then if your education is focused on multiplying this outcome, then you will have to learn what you need to multiply this outcome. The challenge is our education has no linkage to any form of productivity. And because of that, you cannot produce. I'd argue that universities should have 95% autonomy in their curriculum development, because every university is in a unique environment, and that environment has its problems. It has unique problems it wants to solve, and they probably want to channel their energy into solving those problems, and that's where the curriculum will be developed. If you do something in a certain way, and because you've done it in a certain way, you can't solve the problem that exists, you come back to yourself and say, hey, I need to do this thing differently so that I can solve this problem. But because we are not focused on any problem solving, that's why our curriculum is just jazz. Well, we're behind. It doesn't exist. Even what you studied.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Well, let's now look at the budget allocation and implementation for education in Nigeria. I know you say yes again. Do we need to increase this?
Yes, we need to increase it, but before we increase it, we need to repurpose it. Now, I will keep arguing from now till next year that the government has no business with tertiary education. All the monies they've allocated to ASU, they should take it and go to the schools in my village and in your village and ensure, no, listen, see, to employ teachers, you need to have good teachers in primary and secondary schools. Already guarantees 65 to 70% of the outcomes, not even the building. Now, you've got to employ good teachers. You've got to build the schools. You've got to even help. In fact, schools, public schools, even help with controlling malnutrition, because you can feed. All the monies we put on those tertiary institutions, see, we have enough graduates. If we want to shut the schools, we have enough graduates to do we don't have works. So let's take that monies back, increase it, but repurpose it. Repurpose it. ASU cannot make an argument in front here that they actually need, that the allocation should be. No. It should be repurposed. Primary and secondary, when people graduate, they either go and do vocation or they go into the universities. And because the universities are now smaller and a lot more focused, we know that the graduates from there will be able to be productive in the outside world. So no matter what they charge, we can put monies behind it and say, this is the money. When you come out, 10% of your salary goes back to paying off the money, and it's fine. See, if we do not want people to start killing themselves, you know, in some Western countries now, people are committing suicide because of school loans. It's because some of them are now getting into the space where they train people not looking at the market. So people come out, they spend so much money going to school, and they cannot pay. That same thing will happen in Nigeria if you open education loan and make it an all-commerce affair. Someone will go and read something Igbo linguistics.
And he will come back. I will leave paper.
I will leave it. I will leave it for it.
Honestly, it's been an interesting conversation. I must tell you, at the start of the week, Mr. Obina Okachuku, he's the divisional head, business growth and transaction banking and sterling. Thank you so much for starting the week with us on Business Nigeria. We appreciate this. I will keep following you up for developments, and let's see how it is. We'll get there someday.
We will definitely get there. So long as the conversations are happening and we've started saying the things the way they are, and private sector, we are leading the private sector in committing both to infrastructure and to student loans. I think more people will get involved.
Thank you so much, and do have a productive week.
Thank you. You too. Bye.